It is Wednesday, July 19th. One last shot to repeal, then replace Obamacare. President Trump working hard to deliver for the American people.
We're being outworked by the President of the United States.
That's spiking the football on the American people who will continue to pay more under the Affordable Care Act that is collapsing.
The group of Republican senators meeting with the president today. We are live in Washington.
Two shots heard from the east. Weird, those sounds from the station. Those are probably aerial fireworks.
All right, brand new details released overnight about an officer-involved shooting of a bride-to-be. The loud sound that may have startled the officer moments before opening fire.
And a major waste of taxpayer dollars, the experiment to rehabilitate an Islamic State supporter, now coming under scrutiny. Fox and Friends First starts right now.
It is 5 o'clock. Good morning. You're watching Fox and Friends First on this Wednesday morning. I'm Rob Schmidt.
And I'm Heather Childers. Thank you so much for starting your day with us, as always. Let's begin with President Trump vowing not to throw in the towel in the fight to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Yeah, instead, he's already plotting the path forward for the GOP's health plan.
Griff Jenkins is live in our nation's capital with the details on the big meeting at the White House that is set for today. Griff, will it make any difference?
I don't know. Good morning, Heather and Rob, and it's going to be a big lunch. Some folks may actually leave with indigestion because it was a frustrating day at the White House yesterday as the effort to repeal and replace Obamacare fell apart. Defiant President Trump blaming Democrats for the bill's defeat, vowing to let Obamacare fail and just move on.
We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us, and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan?
Now the president is inviting all GOP senators to the White House for a working lunch. Get working on that new plan. It appears that plan is to resurrect a repeal-only House bill from 2015 that President Obama vetoed. And they're not wasting time. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announcing they'll proceed to vote on it as early as next week.
At the request of the president and the vice president, and after consulting with our members, we'll have the vote on the motion to proceed to the Obamacare repeal bill early next week.
But already, Mitch McConnell is facing opposition from within his own party, and it's not clear he would have the votes to even begin debate on that bill. And, of course, they won't have Democrat support as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer calls for a bipartisan bill.
Rather than repeating the same failed partisan process yet again, Republicans should work with Democrats on a bill that lowers premiums, provides long-term stability to the markets, and improves our health care system.
So here's the thing, guys. It's very clear that moving forward has become a difficult process for everybody. And this, of course, was one of the president's top priorities. The president noting yesterday in comments that he was looking at the 2018 midterm, saying we need to simply elect more Republicans. Guys?
But they already have the majority, and they can't seem to get it done.
There's a lot of Republicans out there, and they can't get it done. All right, Griff, thanks so much. All right, so he kind of went into it there for a little bit. It is interesting to see how when you have a failing socialized healthcare system like Obamacare, that you have Democrats so happy about the fact that there is no fix in sight.
Right, yes, and not offering any of their own up until this point.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So let's listen to a soundbite here from, Senator Cory Gardner.
There are a lot of people out there today who seem to be spiking the football, trying to celebrate a moment that for now seems to leave the Affordable Care Act in place for today. But let me tell you what happens if you continue to spike the football. In the state of Colorado last week, it was announced that the average premium rate increase for the next year will be 27%. But that's if you're lucky enough to live in the Front Range of Colorado. If you live in the eastern plains, the western slope, you're going to pay 30% more. You're going to pay 40% more. That's spiking the football on the American people who will continue to pay more under the Affordable Care Act that is collapsing.
Yeah, and just repealing it without a replacement is a 100% increase.
Right. It's a fantastic soundbite. It's a very good point. And I think a lot of people do argue that with Obamacare, the Democrats took this too far. I don't know anybody who thinks that it makes any sense for a family of four living on $100,000 a year to be getting subsidized health care.
Right.
I mean, it's just far too expensive. And how does that make any sense? That's 4 times the poverty level. Why are we all paying to support people that are making $100,000 a year, wife, husband, 2 kids? There's a lot of money in a lot of places. Now, and if you're living in New York City, that's not too much money. But if you're living in the Midwest, that's a pretty good living.
But the thing is, it may not be over yet, because we know what happened with the House and their plan, which they were able to eventually finally come together and vote in favor of. We have the Senate situation right now, the president meeting with senators today. So perhaps, maybe still, there could be some sort of solution versus just repealing and then replacing later, because a lot of people not in favor of that.
Right. And there's a lot of Republicans get so much grief, especially from the left, on being insensitive to the plight of the poor and the working class. But there's also a great argument to be said that the more welfare you create in this country, the more people you put on welfare. And there was a wonderful bite from I can't remember if it was Romney or who it was, running for president, said, it's not our goal to see how many people we can put on the system and we can put on welfare plans in this country. We're trying to get people off the system.
Well, that's why there's a huge push right now to get people to work. In order to get food stamps, you have to work, and that type of process.
And there's nothing wrong with that. That can help people. It's just it's tough love versus let's just see how much stuff we can give away until everybody's on the system, everybody's a part of the machine, and then we're going under.
There are opinions on both sides. We'll see what happens today with that meeting. Perhaps something positive will come out of it.
Very possible. We'll see.
But in the meantime, President Trump, as we've told you, is slamming the mainstream media, firing back after a scheduled dinner with Russian President Vladimir Putin was reported as a secret meeting. Did you hear about this? Well, the White House is calling what actually happened a, quote, brief conversation in full view of other world leaders it was after a G20 dinner arranged by Chancellor Angela Merkel. Our commander-in-chief tweeting, fake news story of secret dinner with Putin is sick. All G20 leaders and spouses were invited by the Chancellor of Germany. Press knew. The White House also pointing out First Lady Melania Trump was seated next to the Russian president.
All right, happening today, President Trump's controversial voter fraud commission will hold its first public meeting. The bipartisan panel, led by Vice President Pence, is under fire after most states, at least partially, refused to hand over voting data. The panel is hoping to pinpoint any potential flaws that may have led to voter fraud during the 2016 election.
Well, the Supreme Court could rule at any moment over the latest challenge to the president's partially reinstated travel ban. Just hours after Hawaii responded, the Department of Justice pushed right back, telling the justices that challengers seek to drain the nation's top court's original decision. Now, this comes as the Trump administration expanded the list to include grandparents as well as aunts, uncles, nieces, nephews, and cousins of people from 6 Middle Eastern countries.
All right, President Trump's promised border wall is one step closer to construction. Engineers have started drilling and taking soil samples to find out what kind of barriers would work best in places like Texas, New Mexico, and California. A House panel also advancing a bill that includes nearly $1.6 billion in funding, but that's only enough for about 28 miles of that wall.
Well, the House observing a moment of silence to salute the memory of a slain NYPD officer assassinated for the color of her uniform.
All New Yorkers, my New York colleagues and I stand here on the House floor to salute the memory, the legacy of Officer Miosotti's familia. I now invite my colleagues to join me in a moment of silence.
Officer Miosotti's familia shot and killed sitting in her patrol car was on July 5th. The mother, a 12-year veteran, leaving behind 3 children.
All right, well, little Charlie Gard undergoing more tests as his parents' fight to save his life intensifies. The mother of the terminally ill British infant thanking the U.S. doctor for flying to his bedside to explore potentially life-saving treatments. The UK's High Court will now decide Tuesday whether Charlie can undergo the treatment. A court will decide this, or if he will be taken off life support.
Well, new details surrounding the death of an Australian woman shot by a Minnesota police officer.
Yeah, this is a terrible story. We're now learning that fireworks may have been involved near the scene, and that could have somehow led up to this tragedy. Jackie Ibanez joins us now with the very latest. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, good morning, Heather and Rob. We're now learning that the sound of nearby fireworks may have startled Minneapolis police officer and Somali immigrant Mohammed Noor, who fired the shot, killing 40-year-old Justine Damon. Officers referencing the loud noise in this dispatch audio just moments after Damon was shot outside her home. Listen.
2 shots heard from the east. Weird, those sounds from the station. Those are probably aerial fireworks.
The Australian-born Minnesota woman, you see there, called police to report a possible assault in an alley. According to Officer Matthew Harity, who was driving the car with Noor in the passenger seat, Damon approached the driver's side window while wearing pajamas. That's when Noor fired his weapon through the door, striking her in the stomach. Noor joined the force back in 2015, but had at least 3 complaints filed against him. Both officers have been placed on administrative leave, but Noor refuses to speak.
We cannot compel Officer Noor to make a statement. I wish we could. I wish that he would make a statement, is what I want to say. We can't compel him by law.
Hundreds of mourners, including Damon's father, holding a vigil on an Australian beach to remember the bride-to-be while they wait for answers.
Justine was a beacon to all of us. We only ask that the light of justice shine down on the circumstances of her death.
As for the investigation this morning, authorities now looking for an 18 to 25-year-old man who was riding his bicycle by the scene. They're hoping he may have been a witness to all of it.
There's a lot of
so many questions,
and he's not speaking.
Yeah. The camera's not turned on. The body cam's shooting through the passenger side window, from what I read, from what I understand. And she had walked up to the car with her cell phone in her pajamas. It's just a lot of questions.
Yeah, certainly are. All right, Jackie, thanks so much.
Well, in other news, the widow of the Pulse nightclub shooter will face an obstruction charge. A federal judge refusing to drop the charges, which she disputed over the location of the allegations. She is accused of helping Omar Mateen plan the attack and then mislead investigators. Mateen killed 49 people before calling 911 and pledging allegiance to ISIS. Salman's trial is scheduled for March.
All right, with just one day until O.J. Simpson goes before a parole board, a key witness in his 1995 trial of the century predicts that Simpson will go free. Mark Furman, whose controversial testimony ultimately led to the former Heisman Trophy winner being cleared of all murder charges, says the Juice did the minimum with no violations, and the board will likely have mercy. He's been very good in prison. Simpson is currently serving time from a robbery at a Las Vegas hotel 10 years ago, trying to get back his memorabilia, he said. If he gets parole, Simpson would be free on October 1st, very soon. Stay with Fox News for live coverage. OJ back on TV. Tomorrow morning, we're going to have that parole hearing.
Well, 6 Afghan girls, we've been following this story for you, initially denied U.S. visas before President Trump intervened, are now some winners.
And these girls are adorable. I watched the story last night. It's amazing. They won the silver medal for courageous achievement on the first Global Robotics Challenge in Washington, D.C., where they actually got to celebrate with Ivanka Trump. And it was really something else to see. Yeah, they fought hard.
Battling robots versus what they deal with in their home country, which is
and they're happy to be
battles
here.
of a different kind. Well, the time now is 12 minutes after the top of the hour, and she's a fugitive cop killer hiding out in Cuba. So why is she being honored by a women's group here in America? Why our next guest, a self-described feminist, says that it's time for the Women's March to admit they are wrong on this one.
And Hillary Clinton may have lost to Donald Trump in the presidential election, but she's still winning one contest, an unpopularity contest. Brand new poll numbers showing just how disliked Hillary really is. A prison experiment that uses taxpayer dollars to rehabilitate wannabe terrorists now proving to be a major failure. When Abdullahi Yusuf, who admitted to trying to join ISIS, was sentenced in November, a Minnesota judge offered him to take part in a de-radicalization program. But just 2 months ago, he was caught watching an ISIS documentary at his halfway house as he's trying to be fixed. Critics now calling on the Trump administration to pull the plug and the taxpayer funding of these programs. All right, the acting ICE director unveiling new plans to crack down on illegal immigrants with a target on sanctuary cities. Thomas Homan told the Washington Examiner he's been given the go-ahead to hire 10,000 new agents. Many of them will be deployed to sanctuary cities like San Francisco and New York that have been acting as havens for illegal immigrants that are also criminals as well. Heather, over to you.
Women's March organizers have a new hero, one of the FBI's most wanted domestic terrorists and convicted cop killer, Joanne Chesimard, who now goes by the name Ashada Shakur. The organization taking heat for wishing her a happy birthday on their official Twitter account. And here to weigh in, NRA commentator and founder of Empowered Movement, Antonia Okafor. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me.
So a little background on this situation. Chesimard was convicted of shooting a New Jersey state trooper to death back in 1973. She escaped to Cuba. She fled there in the early 1980s, where she was granted political asylum. So what happened? They're wishing her a happy birthday and also honoring her, correct?
Exactly. Yeah, like you said, Ashada Shakur, she's a member of the far left Black Liberation Army. And then, you know, she made sure that she escaped in 1984 to Cuba, where she is part of refuge. She has refuge there with political asylum. But yet, the Women's March organizers claim to believe that the little protest that they had last week against the NRA, where they say that the NRA's ad starring Dana Lash was inciting violence, was because of that. But who are the real instigators and promoters of violence here when you are basically praising the most notorious and wanted terrorists in America, the FBI? So come on.
So they're accusing the NRA. They're accusing the NRA of inciting violence, while at the same time they're honoring a cop killer.
Absolutely. I mean, it just goes to show that the Women's March has never been about empowering women. Like they try to make it seem like it's about women's rights and advancing that. Come on, a lot of pro-gun, pro-life women see right through that little game. We saw in January that really was just an anti-Trump, anti-life, anti-gun protest, and that's what it's always been. And so it just continues to show with this tweet, which they tried to justify with the 20-tweet thread saying that the reason why they claim this feminist as worthy of praise is because we're basically trying to say that. But
yeah,
even Jake Tapper didn't do it. We can actually show some of those tweets as you're talking about, then some of the other tweets that actually made it worse. There was an entire thread of about, like 20 different tweets where they tried to defend it. Yeah, even Jake Tapper yesterday, which he's getting flack now from CNN, basically called it out as well. I mean, these are fake feminists. They don't really want to advance women's rights. They really just have an agenda for themselves, and that's what it really is.
Well,
it's always been about that.
It's not the first time that they've honored a controversial figure. They also honored Donna Hilton, who was convicted of both kidnapping a man and torturing him to death as well.
Absolutely. Or Linda Sarsour, who is one of the organizers, who claimed that she praises Sharia law, which openly is against women and against having women be equal to men. So come on, let's stop with this fake feminism. Exactly.
All right. Antonia, thank you so much for joining us. Appreciate your insight today.
Thank you so much for having me.
Rob?
All right, 20 minutes after the hour, tax revolt. Why Republican lawmakers are urging Seattle's rich to ignore a brand new tax.
Welcome back. Republicans in Washington state now calling for civil disobedience, encouraging residents to ignore a new tax levy.
Yeah, using a Democratic strategy we've seen a lot of lately. Tracy Carrasco from our sister network Fox Business here with why critics are calling this new law illegal. Hey, Tracy.
Good morning, guys. We told you about this last week, and Republicans in Washington state are calling for civil disobedience as they openly encourage Seattle residents to refuse to pay a newly passed income tax that they say is illegal and unfair. The tax passed by the Seattle City Council targets high-income earners as part of what local lawmakers call, quote, a new formula for fairness. The tax measure would require residents to pay a 2.25% tax if they are a single filer and make more than $250,000 annually, or file jointly and make more than $500,000. The city estimates the new tax would raise about $140 million a year.
Yeah, it's interesting. Okay.
So Chipotle is having another health crisis of sorts.
Yes, that's right. Chipotle has been forced to temporarily close a restaurant in Sterling, Virginia, that's near Washington, D.C., after at least 13 customers reported getting sick from eating there. 2 of them had to be hospitalized. The reported symptoms are consistent with norovirus, and health officials say it's safe to eat at other locations. Customers, though, aren't so sure.
I know they've had problems in the past, and it's very discouraging to hear that it's continuing on. So just disappointed, and I don't think we'll be back for a while.
I think I'm with her. Chipotle has been working to bounce back after an E. coli outbreak in 2015. The restaurant's stock price took a hit on Tuesday as news of the incident spread, falling more than 6.6%.
Wow. And there's apparently a website, I Was Poisoned website, where people were reporting it. Wow.
They had such a good thing going. What a shame. All right, Amazon getting into social networking.
Yes, Amazon is launching its own social network called Amazon Spark for Prime members using the iOS app. Spark is kind of like Pinterest that lets users upload images of products or themselves using the products. Other users can then view those pictures and follow the links to purchase the displayed items through Amazon. Interesting.
Like you need an even easier way to spend money on Amazon.
Exactly.
All right, Tracy, thanks so much.
Okay.
26 minutes after the hour, a 10-year-old boy, one of America's smallest victims, youngest victims of the opioid crisis, how a public pool combined with a powerful painkiller is now being blamed for his death. Our President Trump vowing not to throw in the towel in the fight to repeal and replace Obamacare.
Instead, he is plotting the path forward for the GOP's health care plan. Griff Jenkins live at our nation's capital with some details on the big meeting that's happening at the White House and is set for today. Good morning, Griff.
Good morning, Heather and Rob. You know, making progress on fixing health care is proving to be far more difficult for Republicans, despite the majority they have. And that's exactly what they're going to talk about at lunch today at the White House as a defiant President Trump sent a clear message. It's time to let Obamacare fail.
We're not going to own it. I'm not going to own it. I can tell you the Republicans are not going to own it. We'll let Obamacare fail, and then the Democrats are going to come to us and they're going to say, how do we fix it? How do we fix it? Or how do we come up with a new plan?
And a new plan is on the menu today at the White House. That plan is to resurrect a repeal-only House bill from 2015 that President Obama vetoed. And they're not wasting time. Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell announced yesterday they'll proceed to vote as early as next week on it. And the man who wields the 51st tie-breaking vote, Vice President Pence, urging his fellow senators to get busy.
The Senate should vote to repeal now and replace later, or return to the legislation carefully crafted in the House and Senate. But either way, inaction is not an option. Congress needs to step up. Congress needs to do their job, and Congress needs to do their job now.
But here we go again. McConnell is already facing opposition from within his own party on the repeal-only bill. It appears he does not have the votes to even begin voting on it next week, and Democrats won't be counted on, as Senate Minority Leader Chuck Schumer is saying we need a new bill, and he's pretty much hanging the woes of this process on Republicans, calling it a partisan effort. We'll see what the lunch brings, and certainly next week, guys. But one thing's for sure, this is turning into an even bigger mess.
Yeah. I don't know. I'm betting some of those yays and nays are going to change after this meeting this afternoon.
We shall see.
That's what all eyes are on.
That's right. Griff, thanks so much. All right, senior political analyst Brit Hume says Congress needs to be held accountable on health care, especially leaders who now object to the same repeal bill that they voted for just 2 years ago.
If they don't find a way somehow, and I don't know what it would be at this stage, to turn this around and get something done on this, this will be a colossal failure, historic failure, because the reasons that are being given by these members for not being willing to vote for this, we have members of the Senate now who are prepared to keep a vote to repeal Obamacare from even coming to the floor. Now, they're free to vote against it. They want to block its consideration. These are people, in some instances, who voted for that very repeal within the last 2 years. Right. I mean, this is, I don't see how this is politically defensible on their part.
And In the meantime, President Trump is nominating former Utah Governor Jon Huntsman as the ambassador to Russia. Well, Huntsman, who ran for the GOP presidential nomination in 2012, previously served as U.S. ambassador to China and Singapore. Huntsman has accepted and just needs Senate confirmation. And coming up in the 8 o'clock hour, his daughter and co-host of Fox and Friends Weekend, Abby Huntsman, will join us live. And a top U.S. military officer sounding the alarm over North Korea's ability to strike the U.S. with a nuclear missile.
On range, they clearly have the capability. I, however, am not sanguine that the test on the 4th of July demonstrates that they have the capacity to strike the United States with any degree of accuracy.
The rogue nation testing about a dozen missiles just this year, with their most successful being launched on the 4th of July.
An American college student detained in China and his mother calling this a shakedown. Guthrie McLean, a student at the University of Montana, went to China to visit his mom, but was arrested after an altercation with a taxi driver. He was not charged, but police demanded nearly $8,000 for his release. His mom now demanding the U.S. intervene. The State Department says they are aware of the situation, but has not commented further. Kind of a strange time with us in China to be doing that. All right, the wife of a Princeton researcher imprisoned in Iran is begging for his release. She's speaking out for the first time since Shiwei Wang's 10-year sentence became public this week. The 36-year-old arrested nearly a year ago on spying charges as he worked on research for his PhD. Wang's wife maintaining his innocence, claiming he's being unjustly imprisoned.
The opioid epidemic has taken the life of a 10-year-old boy in Florida. Miami police say that Alton Banks died of a fentanyl overdose after visiting his neighborhood pool. Now, the scariest part of it is that investigators say he could have been exposed to it just by touching a towel that had the lethal painkiller on it. Yeah. Now, authorities say that the neighborhood has seen a dangerous spike in overdose deaths.
Okay, a massive wildfire burning out of control, forcing 2,000 residents in California to get out, to evacuate. The blaze burning at this hour in Mariposa County, just southwest of Yosemite National Park. It has already scorched nearly 25,000 acres. It's only 5% surrounded or contained at this point. Governor Jerry Brown declaring a state of emergency as firefighters work around the clock to battle flames as more very hot, very dry weather out west expected to fuel this fire.
Well, a fiery explosion and a power outage that lasted for hours, all thanks to a balloon. Look at this. Yeah, neighbors shared this video of the Mylar balloon bumping into a power line. Then you can see it explodes right between two houses. Officials are now warning the public about the danger of these balloons, and you can see what can happen there.
Okay, so we talked about out west, very hot, very dry. It's typical summer weather out there. But I think, Janice, they have a lot of fuel out there for those fires because they got so much rain last winter. There's just so many plants, and now they're all drying out.
So they have all of this foliage. So when we have wildfires, there's a lot to burn. And unfortunately, we've got dozens of them burning out west. The good news for portions of the Southwest is we're into monsoon season. So a seasonal shift in winds. They are getting some relief in terms of moisture across the Four Corners. But along the West Coast, not really getting all of that moisture that they need for those wildfires. Want to talk about the threat for strong to severe thunderstorms across the upper Midwest and the Great Lakes. Past 6 hours, not too much on the radar, but later on today, we're going to start to see the potential for hail, damaging winds, even tornadoes across portions of the upper Midwest, including the Minneapolis area as well as La Crosse. So just be aware of your surroundings. If there's a watch or a warning in your neighborhood, know what to do and where to go. The heat is on across the central U.S. These are actual temperatures, but with the heat index, it's going to feel even warmer, that more than 100 degrees in a lot of these areas. So heat advisories, heat warnings are up. And I want to show you some video outside of Dallas, Texas. This gentleman was in his truck when lightning struck the antenna on the passenger side of his car. And you can see the damage. I mean, this guy is so lucky that it didn't hit the driver's side, and he wasn't holding on to any metal. So that was the good thing. He did not get electrocuted.
Well, they say being in the car, right? The rubber on the ground, it protects you. It's like one of the safest places to be is in a car, I've heard.
I didn't know that guy was real safe. Car at all because of that.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's crazy.
The lucky truck.
Yeah, learn something today.
Janice, thanks so much.
You got it.
Yeah, need to get those wildfires under control.
Absolutely, yeah. All right, you'll like this one. A woman gets pulled over for stealing her boyfriend's heart.
What? Well, Amanda Radican bursting into tears when a Texas police officer tells her there's warrants on her car, but that panic quickly melting away when she spots a familiar face behind her.
Why is he showing this warrant? That's what we're trying to figure out. We're trying to get everything taken care of. No worries. Don't worry at all. 3:39. It is confirmed.
I don't think they expected you to start crying, but that's okay. Of course she said yes, thankfully. Her future husband is a police dispatcher.
I wonder what the conversation was, though, when they got home.
Oh, I don't know.
You scared me.
That's right out of Me, Myself, and Irene, one of Jim Carrey's best movies. They did the same thing. I love it.
Well, the time now is about 20 minutes until the top of the hour, and some brand new details released overnight about the officer that was involved in the shooting of this bride-to-be. The loud sound that may have startled the officer moments before opening fire.
Also, the people have spoken, and a new poll has named the top governors in the country. What they all have in common might not surprise you.
And you can't make this stuff up as Tropical Storm Dawn fizzles out. The next name on the list, yep, Tropical Storm Hillary. Carly Simkis here with the story sending the internet into a whirlwind. Welcome back. Reaction is pouring in online after the Republicans changed course, vowing to repeal Obamacare now and replace it later.
That's the intention anyway. We'll see if they can even do that. Carly Simkis with Fox News Headlines 24/7, Sirius XM 115 here with Senator Tim Scott's tweets coming to the Republicans' defense.
So many more. That's right. So the Senate's failure to pass the health care bill didn't really come as a big surprise to many, but it has left many wondering what's going to happen next. Now, the president has been pretty defiant in his stance on this. He says, as I have said, let Obamacare fail and then come together and do a great health care plan. Stay tuned. So some pretty strong reaction coming from the president. Now, Republican Senator Tim Scott from South Carolina, he defended his party, saying that they were fighting an uphill battle because once an entitlement is in place, it is darn near impossible to root it out. So he sent out a series of many tweets, but we picked three of the best ones, saying, when I was elected to Congress in 2010, along with record-breaking freshman class, the major platform was repealing the Affordable Care Act and the national debt. He goes on to say the debt continues and grows and the Affordable Care Act is not getting any better. The former isn't helped by the latter. He also says no matter how badly the program serves or doesn't serve the people, replacing an entitlement is hard. He says too many people are used to it and there's too many moving parts. But my favorite reaction from this healthcare situation comes from Devil Went Down to Georgia singer Charlie Daniels. Check out what he says. He says, okay, the Congress and Senate we have can't work together and have proven it. Solution, replace them all until we find people who can. The Senate is not a political body. It's a kindergarten class. So he's suggesting we repeal and replace Congress.
Yes.
I have a feeling that's going to get a bipartisan no vote.
I follow him on Twitter. People that don't should, because he has
and he's 10 years old, tweeting up a storm, still touring.
All the time.
God bless him.
All right, tweeting up a storm. We're talking about other storms here. Tropical Storm Dawn and Tropical Storm Hillary.
I laughed out loud when I saw this last night. You just can't make this up. So there are two potential tropical storms looming in different parts of the country last night. One named Dawn and one potentially named, you guessed it, Hillary. So we just got the official update on these two storms from meteorologist Janice Dean, who said that Dawn has disintegrated, so it's not happening anymore. And Hillary probably hasn't strengthened or won't strengthen enough to receive an official name. But the prospect alone had social media cracking up, including me. Take a look at some of these really funny tweets. People are very clever online. Ryan says, I can guarantee you 100% that you won't see Tropical Storm Hillary in Wisconsin or Michigan. I'm not trying to steal your job, baby.
know. You're doing a good job.
Okay, and then Brad goes on to tweet, patiently waiting a subtropical cyclone Newt.
Right.
And I guess we have to get that definition from you. What the heck is a subtropical cyclone? And then this tweet coming in from Paul says, warning, tropical storm Don has just turned into a Category 1 Covfefe. How do you feel about that? Thank you so much. I was very nervous to do a weather story in your presence.
So I'm just glad that Hillary is not even going to happen. So this debate on Twitter, whether we're going to have a Hillary-Dawn rematch, it ain't happening. Hillary is not even going to be named. So there.
So we're going to have to maybe wait for 2020 for another rematch, because it's not happening today.
Which is fitting. The names are recycled every 6 years.
We do have to get to one more.
Okay, we got to get to one more. But it does involve water of some sorts and another disaster.
Hillary with one L.
Right? Yeah, exactly. Okay. So there's a difference there. Check out this picture. It might be a little hard to see, but this is a security robot who was patrolling a complex in Washington, D.C. It looks like the robot takeover isn't going to happen because it completely rolled into a fountain and totally destroyed itself. So people were laughing at this picture online. Chris says, just put it in a big bowl of rice and wait 3 days. It'll be better. How about that?
Hey, you know what?
I knew that security robots were a thing.
I see people walk into fountains all the time texting on their phones.
Yeah, I've never walked into a fountain, but maybe a pole here
Would
and
you
there.
be afraid of a security robot, though? And what does it do?
Yeah,
I think it's just a camera walking around. All right, let's go to Brian, see what's coming up on Fox and Friends.
All right, you could have checked on your own, but I'm going to go ahead and review it for everybody else who does not get a rundown mailed to their house. Hey, we have Corey Lewandowski coming up. We have Herman Cain and Chris Kobach. Chris Kobach, he's going to be talking about this thing called finding out who's actually voting in this country and why so many states are pushing back. When it comes to the President of the United States, he's going to talk about where we go for here. How many people are blaming the president? How many people are blaming Mitch McConnell? And how many people are blaming themselves about what went wrong on health care? Is it time to pivot or to go back and fully repeal and replace? We'll discuss all those things, including an interview with Senator Jerry Moran of Kansas, one of the people that said, I will not vote for this, killing the bill before it even got to a vote. Oh, and the MyPillow guys here talking about Made in America Week. Don't miss a minute of Fox and Friends.
Well, some new details surrounding the death of an Australian woman shot by a Minnesota police officer.
Yeah, we're learning now that fireworks may have been fired off near the scene, and it could have potentially somehow led to this tragic death. Jackie Ibanez joins us now with the very latest. Hey, Jackie.
Hi, good morning, Heather and Rob. So many questions that need answering. We are now learning that the sound of nearby fireworks may have startled Minneapolis police officer and Somali immigrant Mohammed Noor, who fired the shot, killing 40-year-old Justine Damon. Now, officers referencing the loud noise in this dispatch audio moments after Damon was shot outside her home.
There are 2 shots heard from the east. We heard those sounds from the station. Those are probably aerial fireworks.
The Australian-born Minnesota woman called police to report a possible assault in an alley, according to Officer Matthew Harity, who was driving the car when Noor in the passenger seat. Damon approached the driver's side window while wearing pajamas. That's when Noor fired his weapon through the door, striking her in the stomach. Noor joined the force in 2015, but had at least 3 complaints filed against him. Both officers have been placed on administrative leave this morning. But Noor, he refuses to speak.
We cannot compel Officer Noor to make a statement. I wish we could. I wish that I wish that he would make a statement, is what I want to say. We can't compel him by law.
Hundreds of mourners, including Damon's father, holding a vigil on an Australian beach to remember the bride-to-be while they wait for answers.
Justine was a beacon to all of us. We only ask that the light of justice shine down on the circumstances of her death.
As for the investigation, authorities now looking for an 18 to 25-year-old man riding his bike who may have witnessed the shooting. Heather and Rob.
Let's see if they can find him.
Right.
Yeah, this is a terrible story. All right, Jackie, thanks so much.
Thank you. Well, switching gears now, the people have spoken by naming Republican governors as the best in the country. It is according to a Morning Consult poll ranking state leaders with the highest approval ratings. The GOP sweeping the top 11 spots, 3 of them representing blue states. Leading the list, Governor Charlie Baker of Massachusetts at 71%.
All
All right, months after the election, Americans still aren't with her. A new Bloomberg poll showing President Trump is viewed more favorably than Hillary Clinton right now, 41 to 39%. Neither doing too well. She's even losing popularity with her own supporters, even after the election. According to Bloomberg, more than a fifth of Clinton voters now view her unfavorably. People that voted for her just, 8 months ago?
Yeah.
Amazing.
Well, New Jersey